I'd like to call the February 13th Budget Committee meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deb, would you please call the roll?
I shall. Jay Edwards.
Present.
Deborah Janik, present. Ruth Hollenbach.
Present.
Joe Souza.
Present.
Tom Haley is absent. Mike Dakota's absent. Jen Jocelyn.
Present.
Brendan McNally.
Present.
Jennifer Rashley.
Present.
And Sherry Aker is absent.
Very good. Next item is open public forum. Does anybody care to speak on something relative to tonight's agenda? I guess not.
Jay, do we have agendas? I didn't see it in our set of paperwork.
Oh, we did.
Oh, thank you.
I thought the guy had it out. Does everybody have an agenda?
No,
Thank you so much.
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. Let's get that about that.
Thank you.
So I already told you all, but just so you know, the town council graciously gave us the funding to have the secretary. Thank you very much. One less thing. Okay. One thing that has happened is Jan is out for an indeterminate length of time. And when I made up this agenda, I did it because the way I did it, I thought Jan, having a big thing to present, would be last. However, it's not working out that way. So I'd like to stick with the land use budget for item 5 and item 6 the way they are. However, we're going to have to divvy up some of the items under 8 that Jan would have normally done. So things like the town council budget, we have a town council here, member here to help us with that. Town hall operations. Again, Chris can help us with that.
Steve's here.
Network equipment and the software and things like that. Dave Roberts will try to help us with that. So hopefully we'll be able to cover a lot of this stuff and won't feel lost cause. So having said that, can we move on to land use, which is page 5, number 1140 in the docket. And we have the building commission.
Hello, everybody. One thing I wanted to, if you're ready for me to start, is that okay?
Sure.
Yes.
Bottom line for this budget was adjusted on meetings with Jan and the town council, and I just wanted to make sure it got to you. I have 304,556.
We don't.
You have a little bit above that?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So-
have the January 15th
Okay.
version.
Well, I would let you know that 5102 salaries were adjusted. That was the biggest change. We had movement in the offices, so now we have a first-year clerk and a second-year clerk, which made the adjustment to those salaries. Okay? And we dropped $69.92 down to $500.
So what did the salaries go down to?
No, the salaries went down to a total of $72,243, and that includes some overtime for the planning board clerk to attend night meetings.
Okay. So the big thing that changed for you was software maintenance.
Yeah, the software maintenance did not get into the 2019-2020 budget. We had to make up for it this year, so we made sure it was in the 21. Because this will be our second full year. 2021 will be our second full year in Viewpoint.
And that's proprietary to you. Is that the one that got
There was
sold?
state mandated,
No.
yeah, state mandated online permitting, and is a pretty costly record distribution on that.
And I think I think you and I had a conversation about this.
Yep.
Are we fully able to shift all of that expense onto the appliquees, people that apply?
At this moment in time, no, they bill us yearly. We cannot take, if I understand what you mean, we can't take a piece of every permit and direct it back to the software provider. We have to do it in an invoice manner. We could get into that someday with Viewpoint, which now is sold to Open Government, which is
Yeah.
the company name. So right now, we're gonna stick with invoicing. They'll invoice us yearly is basically how it works.
So there's really, so, go ahead.
No, I was just clarifying.
So there's really no easy way to recoup that money from
Well,
applications.
the only thing, we are visiting fees, for permit fees. So we're visiting that option on discussing that with the state, because the state mandated the fees. So we're working with the council and Jan to do that.
Do you think we're gonna be successful?
I'm hopeful.
Hopeful. Pat, you were gonna say something?
I was just gonna, actually, Bill said it, that our building fees are set by the state.
Right.
And they put different towns in different categories, and our category, our fees are relatively low. But there is an appeal process for that. So we're undertaking the steps necessary to appeal those fees. In part, this is one example why, because the cost of the service is going up. So we hope to make that appeal, and that will generate more revenue from fee permit revenue, which, will offset the cost of the online permit.
Maybe next year.
Well, I don't, actually, maybe not. I mean, the appeal process shouldn't take a really long time. Whether or not we know by the end of the budget season, I don't know, but it's a priority, and it was identified as a priority to try and get a decision before the revenue numbers were closed out, so that if possible, they could be calculated even for next year's budget. So it is at the top of the priority.
You getting anywhere with a planner?
No. Well, we may have a candidate. We might have a candidate. We're trying. It's hard, there aren't many of them in Rhode Island right now, so they're just hard to find.
And Sue Gill can't do everything forever.
No, and it's not fair to keep asking. And to be honest, I mean, Sue is very good at what she does, but we need to address our needs. An experienced municipal planner, especially someone who's got a lot of experience in rewriting zoning code, because the zoning code desperately needs to be updated. But you really need a professional, experienced planner.
I'm going to try to keep my head on a swivel better, so I look at everybody, make sure. So does anybody else have any questions other than me?
Sure. So, and this might go, or maybe, Trish, in the spreadsheet we have for the planner position, vacant, there's a 90,000 for salary. That's a placeholder till we know, is that correct?
That is a placeholder.
Okay. And then the second question is, Bill, just so I have it, is the line item that we have is salary for the building zoning clerk and land use clerk. That number you said was 72?
243.
243, okay. So we were higher on that. And then the other item that you mentioned changed was?
6992, which is boarding of buildings. Typically, we would request the property owner to board a building when there's a problem. But every now and then, the town has to step in, but we really work hard at not doing that.
So, and then the last one was that you were talking about the software maintenance, was that the money didn't get in this current fiscal year. So
Right.
the number we're showing is 11,333.
Yep.
Is that the number going forward each year, or is that in essence doubled up?
Well, so we pay by the record.
Okay.
So if our records go up, if the department increases, we will have, and they only, it's a little bit complicated, but they charge us by the 500 amount of records that we purchase, not one at a time. So there's a fee for that. And they also have built into their contract 7% increase each year.
It must be a state operation.
No comment on that, sir.
So, but I guess, is the 11 trying to account for part of this year?
No, that's for, that'll be fiscal '21.
Okay.
Joe,
Great, thanks.
I see the wheels grinding.
No, I'm just thinking about, it's just another unfunded mandate from our great state legislature, that's all.
Well, on the surface, it was a good idea because it would, ease and smooth out the process and all that, and it's just that they can at will increase the cost, and they don't make it real easy to recoup it.
That's because the state mandated it.
Yep.
So now, it's kind of like we looked at with the costs for the kids with special needs, you know what I mean? Every year it's going up. I remember 8% increases. It just makes you kind of fed up.
Does anybody else have anything to say about land use?
I just had a question on the software maintenance. What was
Really?
that? What was that? You said it didn't get in the budget last year. I see the 4,400.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
The cost for fiscal '20 was 9,700, I believe. That
Actual?
They had to take on a contingency,
Yeah, I see.
part of it.
When we adopted this system, it was not made clear that there was essentially a record fee that went with it. So it wasn't known that existed, and it wasn't budgeted
Blindsided again.
for. Although we are optimistic that even a relatively small increase in the building permit fees, given the number that we generate, that we can make the case to the state that, this is a significant expense. It's a great program, and it makes life a lot easier for the applicants, but, it shouldn't be a burden on the office, and that's
Right.
part of the reason for our request for a modest increase in the fees to be able to cover this.
We should at least break even.
Right, I mean, I see 1819, the actual was 9,900. So then the request is 4,400. I just didn't really understand why you went down and why
Yeah.
now you're up, and it just doesn't seem like it was planned really consistently. That's all. Thank you for letting me know.
Well, if you look at that, Ruth, in 2018-19, 2,000 was budget. I know what you're saying. And then it mushroomed up to that, but then the next
There's a
year,
reason,
no, for some reason.
there was a
we
reason
didn't-
that it went up, so.
We didn't pick up on it.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Next up is the tax assessor budget and reevaluation account. We're on page 6, 2120. We have Dave Robert here. And if we could, we'll move up some of the 8, A, B, C, D, whatever it is, to accommodate him so he doesn't have to stay here all night.
Thank you, appreciate that. As far as my budget request for this coming year, last couple of days I've been reviewing some of the line items and what I would like to do under professional tech services, which is account 7198. The request is for $1,500. I would actually like to reduce that down to 1,000. And as my budget is pretty straightforward, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Why did your software maintenance go down so much?
That's going to be addressed in the administrator's IT budget.
Okay.
But basically what we're doing is we're transferring all of the town hall departments' budgets that have some type of general IT services. We're removing funding from the individual departments into this one general account.
An excellent idea.
We'd like to think so.
Well, I know Jan, that was one of Jan's big priorities for this year, or
Right.
for a while. And let's see. The GIS updated data layers. It went
Right.
up $1,000. That's why you can't always just look at percent.
Right, so as far as that's concerned, that's an outside vendor that we utilize for the updates of our tax assessor maps. And they are moving from basically a yearly, one-time update process to more of a rolling over the year. So it's almost kind of like switching over from your standalone Microsoft Word product to a subscription base.
Okay.
And that's kind of what they're doing. So there is going to be an increase in fee.
So it'll be more accurate more often.
More often, yes. Yeah, and currently, right now, we're updating the GIS information online. The bulk of the information once a year. This will be transferring over to 4 times a year, so quarterly.
Anybody else?
So if the software maintenance is going to be shared across that one administrator bucket, right? We don't know how much each department's going to be using it. Like, one could use it 50%, one could use it, a lot less. We won't know who's using it most or least, right? Is that true?
Well, the general idea behind that is that if there's something that's specific to that department, like for instance in mine, if there's a software that's specific to the department, that's going to remain there. The other things that's going into the general account would be basically hardware replacement and the service for that. So it's kind of like the rolling inventory of like the police department with the vehicles. So there's going to be a schedule where we're going to put the aging hardware, the PCs, onto a rotation. So every year there's going to be some type of update to the infrastructure.
Thank you.
Which makes a lot of sense.
And correct me if I'm, part of what's going on here, I went through this whole thing and I just listed all the things that were information technology related, and I came up with like $200,000.
Including the department specific?
Adding all departments, including department specific. And then I came and talked to Jan. I said, look, there's got to be a better way. And before I could get too riled up and into it, he calmed me down, and his plan is to have one bucket that general computer services go in and general tech services go in. and that'll be identified. And if we do that, then we can have one vendor and one bill, instead of having each department have their own little fiefdom and their own little piece of that pie. So, having done that, no, we will not be able to know if Dave Roberts is using it more than the clerk or anybody else. But do we really care? Because that's just general computer service. Then the other buckets will be, well, I have specialized software and only I can use it, and I have specialized software. That will be in the department. So, and then the other thing that's happened is, a lot of the town was on Windows 7. Microsoft doesn't support it. And what, so now they're trying to go to 10. You may or may not need more hardware to do that. So, you know, it's a complicated thing. But that's the plan. And that includes all the departments, you know, police station, the fire department, all of them.
Does that mean that the 200K, will that go down at some point then?
Well, hopefully it will.
Okay.
It's like economy of scale. You know, if you buy your satellite TV service from 5 different people, it's going to be one price. But if you just get it from one, yeah, it's bound to be cheaper. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a little while. Yes, Joe.
We're gonna get to a point where, I thought I remember that there was a lot of problems with, like, the clerk's office talking, communication between the different offices, because everybody was on their own system.
We've pretty much moved away from that. So currently, town hall is all, for all intents and purposes, on one server. Before, there used to be kind of a mismatch.
Yeah.
The town clerks is a little bit different, only for the fact that they have some state software packages that has to be on its own separate network. So that's not connected to the town hall's network, per se.
Say voting records.
But as far as the communication between all the departments,
Yeah.
It's working pretty well right now. But that's going to be also addressed in the IT budget, because we are moving forward with the virtualization of the network, which will reduce our costs, but it's also to beef up the security of the system.
Are we using, like, storage outside of town hall now for?
We are, but when we do the virtualization, that's going to even create more redundancy as far as backups are concerned. So we will be much safer and secure once we start that process.
How vulnerably, guy I worked for, his company got hacked. He had to pay like $75,000 to get it turned back on.
Yeah,
Literally shut his factory down in Philadelphia.
yeah.
I mean, are we vulnerable like that?
We are. However, we are proactive in taking steps to protect the network. If you recall, roughly 6 years ago, we actually did get hit with ransomware.
Oh, I didn't have
We
that.
actually had to pay, at that point in time, it was like $300. But paying that $300 was, you know,
Yeah, wasn't 75,000.
wasn't right, and it wasn't a big deal. And, you know, the way that those operations work is that when they say, you know, if you don't pay us, you're not going to be able to get your data, it's true. But then your risk is like, well, if I do pay you, what guarantee
Yeah.
you would get that you are? Well, the idea is that if you don't pay them, if you do pay them and you don't get your data back, and then that gets spread out, no one's ever going to pay these companies. So that's what happened. We paid the $300, and a day later, we got the code to re-uncrypt everything, and everything was back to normal. It's amazing what's out there. But yeah, as far as the answer to your question, we have, you know, firewall protections. The redundancy, that's what we'll address moving forward, is the virtualization of the system in the network. Because once we do that, we're going to have multiple backups. So if we do get hit with ransomware, we don't have to pay. We can just plug into one of our backups and we're good to go.
Is that the cloud?
Yes.
Okay, I'm as dumb as a rock on this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of times you'll see advertised now AWS, which is the Amazon cloud web service. So that's basically what it is. You'll not only have your data stored at one of their centers, you actually have it stored at multiple centers. So just in case one of their centers get hit, they have the redundancy.
So one question I got asked about this tonight, do we need to be going out to bid on this stuff? Will we,
question.
or are we doing it so piecemeal that it's just a little bit at a time, or should we be going out for a RFP?
Yeah, I think we're always looking at, right now we have a vendor that we utilize, that incrementally, it does get to a point where we are expending a certain amount of money that you would generally think would have to go out to bid. So that's one of the things that we are gonna be taking a look at. But you get into a very tricky thing, just like my department, we have a certain piece of software. Tax collections have a piece of software. On an annual basis, the subscription cost is $3,000 plus. So there's a threshold of going out to bid, but it just doesn't make sense to go out to bid on a yearly basis because then you're always disrupting the software package that you have. So there are, discussions about, at some point, will we go out for further IT bids? But as far as the subscriptions and the redundancy and, paying for the cloud protection, it is what it is.
No, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about, if we're purchasing lots of hardware and software packages and all that,
Yeah.
I forget, what is, well, you can do $5,000 without a bid, is it?
Right, but those items are on a state bid list, so those you don't have to go out to bid for.
All right. Well, I'm sure that'll be solved at the town council and town administrator level. I'm just curious. Anything else?
Are we talking
Ruth?
about the IT?
We haven't got there yet.
Okay.
We will in a minute. Okay, and while we still got Dave, I'd like to move 8F.
Are we just talking about the revaluation first?
Yeah.
Oh,
Revaluation.
reevaluation, absolutely.
I believe on the revaluation, I don't have my latest update, I didn't print out the right way. I believe the request is for 40,000. That's in front of you? Yeah.
Right.
Prior to this past year, we had been budgeting roughly 53,000. Last year, we went to 85, I think, because we're gonna be appraising the power plant this year. So that's a specialized appraisal. So now we're gonna go back, we were gonna go back to the 53, but because of the money that we do have in the account, which is a restricted account, and the projection of what future revaluations will cost us, I'm amending that down to $40,000.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Any questions on that?
That's this year that the tax agreement's up.
For the power plant?
Yeah.
Yes.
So is this the evaluation that they do on paper versus going into people's homes?
This one, they are going into people's homes.
Into people's
This
homes?
year, yes.
And we lowered the price.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah, the bid, I anticipated that the bid for the full revaluation, which we're doing, would be $355, but it came in at $296.
So there's
So
money,
we're gonna be
there's a
doing the
balance in the
census and
account.
the evaluation this year. It's gonna be busy, huh?
Well, it's a rolling account that is restricted, so
Yeah, it's a restricted account. Yeah.
fortunately, we have things like that.
So you said there's 64 in the account now?
Remaining balance, I'm looking at the remaining balance, it's for this year was 64,000. So that's probably not the entire restricted account, but what's remaining for this year is 64.
Okay.
And it started off at 85.
Anybody else? Okay, can we move 8F and G up to now? That'll be the capital request for network equipment, and the capital request for town hall PCs and software, which are on page 2.
So moved.
And if you,
Second.
under municipal capital, and if you drop down to item 9015, whoops, yeah, 9015.
What page are we on, Jay?
I hope I'm on page 2. Oh, it's not 9005, which is town hall, PCs and laptops, and 9010, which is network equipment.
All right. I made the motion.
I
Ruth seconded.
Oh, okay. All those in favor? I think that was unanimous.
So I believe the network equipment account, we approved a budget of 4,000 last year, and this year there's no further requests, so it should be 0.
Right.
Right. The,
So why did we make it 0?
yeah, we're all set with the equipment. So that was just network equipment.
Okay.
As far as the town hall, PCs and laptops and software, the request was 20, you got approved for 10, we're requesting 15. So this is gonna be part of that recycle, or cycle period of replacing machines and taking out of departments. And we're also going to work on the virtualization. We were gonna work on it somewhat this year, but you actually mentioned something earlier about Windows 7 versus 10. We were kind of caught unexpected that 7 was no longer going to be supported, and that then opens us up to some security issues. So we had to change all of the remaining machines that had Windows 7, and there was roughly 15 of them, to Windows 10. So that ate up a chunk of money. So we were not able, and we're not going to be able to get the server that we need to virtualize the system. So that's why we're requesting the additional, well, the 15,000 for next year, so we can buy the host server for the virtualization.
And that gives us an added level of security, right?
That'll end up giving us an added level of security, and that's the thing that Mike's aware of the redundancy as far as the Amazon cloud or whatever service we end up using.
So when we start installing Windows 10, does the town have one license, or is it 10, 12, 15 different licenses?
Well, the Windows 10 is not necessarily a license, it's just an operating system upgrade.
okay.
So we've already taken care of that. It's just a matter of, the IT vendor has to go to each machine, update it, do a couple other things to configure it to work with the server. So that's already been done. So now all the machines in town are Windows 10. And while we were doing that, we also upgraded some of the hard drives to a solid-state drive, so there's less moving parts, and it'll extend the life of some of the machines.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thanks a lot, Dick.
Oh, no, I had one. So,
sorry?
Dave, what you were saying that for FY '21, the 15,000 is primarily a server and some desktop unit replacement, is that?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep. And some printers too, I'm sure.
Okay, that was in there.
And tech service.
Yeah.
And
And labor.
how do we buy equipment like that? Is it something that, do we put that out for bid, especially something that's like on a server like that?
No, because, well, the server, again, a lot of hardware, like Dell, for instance, is on a state bid list. So we wouldn't have to go out to bid for that if it's covered under that agreement. The individual machines, if we're buying a machine here and a machine there, we're buying desktop PCs now for $700. So there's no reason to go out to bid. And we don't buy them in groups necessarily. But that's something that we can take a look at. But right now, it's just an individual basis.
You caught me and said, like, how much is a server roughly?
The virtual server is going to be roughly $7,000.
7,000, but the process for getting one of those, it needs to be on a list approved by the state, is that what?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few computer companies on the state bid list. I haven't seen it lately, but I'm aware that Dell used to be on it.
Anybody else?
And then just, when I'm looking at the projection forward in the next 5 years, this will be a recurring cost, the virtualization.
Well, the cloud part of it will be, right, the server will
And-
not be.
And then also the upgrading of computers as they.
Right, right. As they age, we have to replace them. You know, PCs right now last roughly 5 years, you know, before they start running into problems. But once we virtualize some of the machines, we actually may be able to extend that to 6 or 7 years.
So then that projection over the next 5 years, those numbers may go.
It should go down.
May go down. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Until Microsoft changes again.
Yeah, everything unfortunately is going to subscription base as far as software and that type of thing, and, you know, we're kind of at their mercy.
Yes.
I had one more, so in the capital plan document that we have, there's a number, we discussed it last week or the week before, about the tax collection software, it's an upgrade. There's a number that was put in, 30,000, and the tax collector had mentioned that that's shared. Is that between the two? I don't know, I don't care whether it's 50/50 or
It is,
whatever.
right, so that $30,000 also, I hope that they explained that's kind of like a placeholder, and that it actually might be double that number. So, it's, right now, the cost that I've heard between two companies, the transfer over to an updated tax collection software is somewhere around $70,000. But yeah, it's going to be a package that's shared between the two offices.
And do we know when we'll know?
Right now, the company that we utilize is Vision, also years ago known as Opal. So the Opal software collection tax administration system, they're rewriting it as we speak. They did approach the town a few months ago, letting us know that they are going to be doing this rewrite, and that if we want to jump on board, we could get early pricing. And that's where they mentioned the $70,000. But there's another company that's been in existence for a while, and their price would be $70,000, give or take. However, that Opal/Vision rewrite, they're looking to implement the first systems later this year. So at that point in time, they'll have a harder number. But right now, I think that's probably going to be the realistic number of 70 grand. And I think from what I recall, they were looking to begin installations in November of Rhode Island clients. The tax collector and I, we're actually going to be meeting with another software vendor within the next couple of weeks that also offers a tax collection administration system.
Anybody else? We missed anything? Thank you, Dave.
Thank you all.
Dave.
Thank you for moving up the IT, appreciate it.
Not a problem. Next, we have the library. We're on page 15, 6630.
And I have to apologize too, because I put it earlier on the agenda.
The other ones would have moved a little faster if I had to add things in them. Before she gets started, I would like to thank Catherine for a very informative tour that we did last Saturday.
A slightly delayed, you're welcome.
So you can start whenever you would like.
Sure. So, my name is Catherine Damiani, and I'm the Tiverton Public Library Director. Sitting with me here tonight are Carol Herman and Pam Polai. Both are board members on our Library Board of Trustees, and they are both members of our Property Subcommittee. And budget, not property. We have Property Subcommittee too. We have a whole bunch. Okay, so the report that you have in front of you this evening is what Pam, Carol, myself, and her prepared for you. And if you open up to page 2, we wrote a letter to you all. I won't read it word for word. I would like just to highlight a few of the points in the letter here. So we serve a population of 15,870 and currently have 6,371 Tiverton residents registered for a library card. This is 40% of the town, and we're very happy to report that's up 3% from last fiscal year. We also, in fiscal year 19, had 85,120 visitors, 94,512 physical items circulated, and 553 programs and events were held for all ages. And I'll go over a little bit more of the statistics in a few pages. We have 16 regularly scheduled staff members who range from full-time to part-time. And full-time is 35 hours per week. Part-time is between 9 and 25 hours per week. There are 5 MLIS credentialed librarians, 8 paraprofessional staff members, 2 library pages, and a custodian. We also, and later on you'll see this in our organizational chart, have on-call library staff who are actually temporary. So if somebody's out on vacation or somebody calls out sick, then we call those members of our staff in. So they are not included in that total of 16. We, over the past 5 years, have seen an overwhelmingly positive response to the variety of programs that are offered for all ages. The summer concert series, children's story times, and craft programs were some of the most popular in fiscal year 19. And a few new programs that we've added are a movement-based children's activity program, additional book club meetings, and also painting classes. We found an incredible response to our craft programs in the past year. And our new adult services librarian, who was not yet hired at the time of our last meeting around this time last year, has really taken our adult programs to a new level that we're very happy with. We focus on offering programs that benefit our patrons in many ways, and I like to provide you with an example of this. And AARP Tax Aid Foundation comes in from February to April, 2 days a week. And last year, the volunteers worked 20 days, assisted 497 individuals, and filed a total of 341 federal tax returns. So if we take the average filing cost from the National Society of Accountants, which is $188 per filing, then our patrons saved over $64,000.
Awesome.
Yes. Yes, thank you. So in fiscal year 20, with many thanks to the voters of Tiverton, we were able to reestablish Tuesday morning hours at the main library and Saturday morning hours at the Union Library. At this point, we have seen a 13.4% increase in library visits for fiscal year 20 compared to this time last year, and a 16.3% increase in circulation also compared to this time last year. Tuesdays altogether have actually become our most popular day of the week, so we're very happy to say that it is being very well used on Tuesdays. Our fiscal year 21 goals include opening for a half day on Sundays, expanding our physical collection, and increasing our program offerings for adults. All of these services were asked for by our patrons in both our 2018 five-year plan survey and then our more recent 2020 patron survey. So we're seeing this repetition of what our patrons are asking for, which again gives us a good indication of the direction that we'd like to go in. So that's all I have for our introduction here. On page 4, you'll see just our mission statement and our vision statement with pictures of our main library and our union library. Page 5 is our organizational chart, just so you can see the breakdown of our staff that I had mentioned in the introduction. We have myself as the library director, and then we have our department heads, followed by our library assistants, and our library pages, and also our support staff of an office administrator and custodian. Now onto page 6. I have a couple of library statistics for you that I'd like to go over just to show you the magnitude of the use that our library is seeing. Our library visits, again, numbered 85,120 in fiscal year 19. So being open 53 hours per week and 300 days per year, this averages to 281 visits per day. So just about 300 people walking through our doors. Of course, we're open longer on Mondays through Thursdays, and we close at 5 p.m. on Fridays and 4 p.m. on Saturdays. So those are the shorter days. So the majority of our visits are seen Monday through Thursday. Our circulation includes physical items. So this is books, movies, audiobooks, and that was just over 94,000. We do not have that many items in the collection. As you can imagine, some items are checked out multiple times, especially if they're high demand items. We have currently in our collection 57,239 items. Our e-zone circulation, and this is actually a statewide trend across libraries, has absolutely skyrocketed over the past couple of years. We attribute this to both just general patron interest in having a book on their device or on their tablet or on their computer, but also the mobility is that they don't have to carry around a book, or even they can make the screen a different color or the text even larger. So those who may need assistance with reading certain types of text, they're able to do that in the digital format. So in fiscal year 19, we saw circulation of 16,167 items. We share the Ocean State Library's e-zone across all the public libraries. So these books in this collection are not just ours. They're not just owned by us. They're actually owned by the system as a whole. So we all share those. We saw an 18% increase from fiscal year 18 to 19. It has been pretty consistent with seeing that increase, and I don't believe that it will be let up yet. You may have heard recently in the news that Macmillan, who is one of the largest publishers in the world, has placed an embargo on libraries purchasing copies of ebooks. So we, as a system altogether here in Ocean State Library System, we're only able to purchase one book of their new bestseller for a certain period of time, and then they let us purchase additional books. So if our patrons are saying to us, wait times are very high, we're having trouble getting items, that is due to the publisher having that embargo on that. And right now, I believe in New York State and also Rhode Island is considering some sort of legislative action against publishers who are doing this to libraries and deeming it an unfair practice for purchasing. Our computers are one of our most highly used pieces of library equipment. We average about 42 patrons per day, and last year had over 12,000 computer sessions, with about the average being 40 minutes per session. So for those who need, if your printer's broken, come see us, please. Not to fix your printer, but to print at the library. So we have printing services, we have scanning services, internet access, of course, Microsoft Office Suite. So if you have a Mac and it doesn't have Office, come see us too. We always see some cars in our parking lot after we close and some folks on their computers or phones, and they are using our Wi-Fi. It reaches out into the parking lot, and so Wi-Fi sessions last year numbered 10,789 hits. So this is from computers, tablets, smartphones, or if somebody brings in like a handheld gaming console, then that is also something that connects to our Wi-Fi as well. One of our most astounding statistics here is our 553 programs last year with 12,278 attendees. And just to put this in perspective, the first year that we were in the building, we had 378 programs with 8,789 attendees. So you can see that we're up almost 200 programs and up almost 4,000 attendees. Yes.
Can I ask you a question about that? A few years ago, there was a lot of chatter about kids weren't able to sign up. There was a big, long waiting list.
Yes.
Has that improved since you've added more programs?
Absolutely. Okay. And I know one of the main complaints that we had, and I will say complaints because that's absolutely what it was, were that our story times were at capacity very quickly, and there needed to be pre-registration. So what we've done is we've actually added 2 story times to the same morning. So we've doubled the number of story times, and then also pre-registration is not required.
And that's helped. Most of the kids are able to sign up for one of the 2 classes.
Yes, absolutely. We actually will have popsicle sticks out on the desk just for a head count, and the kids will come and grab their popsicle stick. And that's almost like their way of saying, you know, I'm going to story time. So,
okay, awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, if you can turn to page 7. I like to provide a little bit of our library staff full-time equivalent information here, just so that you can see how our staff's time is allocated. So the position is in the left column. Their hours per week are in the second column. And then we have time allocation in the last 4 columns. So of course you can see administration, support staff, programs and duties, and then what I'd like to call your attention to is the service desk column. So we have 4 service desks in the library that are spread out across our landscape there. We have our information desk, which is the main desk. We have our children's library desk. We have our young adult teen library desk, and then last but not least, we have our office area, which is where our phone calls, delivery check-in, drive-through services, that is all taken care of there. So in order for us to fully staff those 4 desks, it would take 212 hours of staff time per year. We are currently at 186.5. So if you see that number at the bottom of the column with a star next to it. So not all of our desks are fully staffed at this point. Because our programs have been so busy, we will call in part-time help for that with our on-call assistants, and then we will also have some desks that will not have staff for the whole time that we are open. So one of our goals will eventually be to have staff members at those desks for all the open hours that we have.
Can I just ask a question about
Sure.
that? So are there some sections that don't have to be manned during certain times of the day? Like the one area that kind of comes to mind is the teen room during school hours.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one that maybe not be staffed, that maybe isn't as needed during the school day?
Yes, absolutely. We do say that during the morning it is much slower. We may have some mentors with students who have modified school schedules come in, or some home school students come in, but primarily the afternoon hours are the important ones that we need staffed as well.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. And we're moving along to page 8. I just provide a little bit more information here about our full-time equivalent information. So we are required by the state of Rhode Island, the Office of Library and Information Services, to have 5 FTEs at the library. We currently have about 8. This is not a recommendation, it is a minimum standard from the state. So I just like to make that very clear that this does not include any of our programs. This just includes basic library operations of, checking in books, checking out books, answering questions. So really, in order to have our programs, we do need more staff here. And as you can see, that has been one of our points of growth for the past couple of years. In In reference to our financial information, we receive every year what's called grant and aid from the state of Rhode Island, and this is a percentage of what the town allocation is to us. It's an average of the town allocation for the past 2 years, and we get about 22% back from the state. So the higher the town allocation goes, the more we end up getting from the state. It is actually mandated that the state should be providing 25% from, average from the fund, but it is underfunded. So we end up receiving the 22%, sometimes lower towards 21. It does depend on what the governor's budget states. And so for next year, we're receiving about $122,000, which I'll go through in our budget in just a little bit.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
The money that the state provides, is that also tied to federal money? Do they get their money from federal money that supports libraries across the country?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes.
Which is in danger.
It is, absolutely.
Jen?
Oh,
Is that
sorry,
working?
it doesn't.
Does it not work? Might not.
Okay. So in addition to our grant and aid funds, we also have a checking account with Bank Newport. And some of this is actually restricted funds specifically for our programs. Every year, the Friends of the Libraries raise money for our programs. That is specifically what they give to. We are very, very lucky that we have such an incredible support system from our Friends of the Library, because our program expenditures are not built into our budget. It is completely donor funded.
And the Friends are a 501(c)(3)?
Yes.
Okay. Organization, charitable organization.
Yes, yes. The remaining fund balance is used for unanticipated expenditures beyond what town allocation covers. So, for example, if we had a new staff member come in and they needed family health insurance, then any unanticipated cost that would come with that, because health insurance is one of our biggest expenditures, would be paid for from our Bank Newport account. So basically anything that we overspend on comes from that account later on in the year, towards the end of the fiscal year, once we balance everything with the town. And also, in addition, building maintenance needs, like the cost of making repairs to the outside of the building, which was not anticipated in this year's budget, something like that would also come from this account.
Catherine, could you, I don't think it's in here, could you mention the foundation, please?
Yes, absolutely. So our library foundation is, their purpose is to build the endowment for the library, and eventually we hope that they will be able to give us some money towards operating costs every year. But as you can imagine, once the library was built, their funds dwindled, so they're in the process of building those funds back up so that they will be able to contribute every year to our operating expenditures. Okay, so pages 9 through 13 are in addition to this year's report, a bit different from last year. So recently, we have come across some property repairs that we were made aware of that need to be made. What we have done, and I presented this to the trustees Monday night, February 10th, is come up with a list of, over the past 17 months that I have been here, the building repairs that have been needed to be made. So, as you can imagine, I just said it was pages 9 through 13. That's 4 pages of building repairs that we have needed over just 17 months. So, you can see by date, this goes from October 2018 to present February 2020. We highlight an area, the description, and also the cost. Some of the most prominent building repairs that we've had to make are emergency repairs. So it is something that needed attention immediately. And if you can imagine, this is pretty costly. And if you flip to page 13, the bottom line of these repairs for the past 17 months were $27,612.21. So we've had a significant amount of items that were needed to be repaired right away. Things like no heat in the building or no air conditioning in the building are certainly emergency repairs because we are a warming center in the winter and we are a cooling center in the summer. A lot of the issues here are some things that have come up pretty dramatically. I told you about a shelving collapse last year, so that was something that we had to work on for a significant amount of time. No heat in the building was something that the original issue of there being no heat, we actually have mitigated, and it was mitigated within a day. But the reason why we didn't have no heat, which was freezing in our propane fill well, is still an issue that we're working on, and we hope that those repairs will be made once the weather breaks in the spring. Something like our door locks and handles were also a substantial amount of time that took in making sure those repairs were made. Back in May of 2019, it was found that one of our children's bathroom door locks had locked and we were not able to open it with a master key. So we did have to call the fire department and have them open the door for us to make sure nobody was in there and that nobody was hurt, sick, etc. We found out from the locksmith who came in that the model of the door lock was no longer being manufactured. And that was because all of the models had actually been recalled and we never found out. So this was something that was repaired at free of cost, but you can see from May 2019 to December 2019, it was something that we were constantly having to keep up with Horner Mill work on to make sure that they were shipping us the locks. Once they did ship those locks and have the technician to come in and replace, we found that they did not properly fit our doors, so they had to be sent back. We had to receive new ones again, and then the technician had to come out again. So many of these repairs have been lengthy, and something like a children's bathroom door lock is not something that we want to see happen again. So you can imagine that this has taken up a substantial amount of my time over the past 17 months. I would say that property and building maintenance is one of the primary things that I work on every day. And even something like our septic system, we thought an issue was mitigated, but there were issues that kept coming up for the next couple of months and were eventually something that had been mitigated. Most recently, we do have an issue with some of our faucets where they don't have hot water. So some things on this list are still things in progress that we are working on. What we did on Monday night with our Board of Trustees is come up with a plan of action for some of these maintenance items. So the DPW director and building inspector are already scheduled to perform an inspection of the entire building, and will provide a list to the trustees with the immediate building maintenance needs at the top. The Library Board of Trustees will then call a special meeting to go over that list of maintenance needs. And then the chair of the Library Board of Trustees, the Library Board's Property Subcommittee, and the library director will meet with the town administrator and DPW so that we can decide what things are on that list that DPW can take care of and what other things on that list we need to contact outside vendors for. Last but not least, at any point during this process, an emergency building issue could arise. So the emergency issues are the things that we always put to the top of the list, and they will always take precedence over non-emergency items on the maintenance list.
Catherine, are any of these items still under warranty?
So for things like the shelving, we were told by B&B Brothers, who were the original builders, that the first year we were in the building was the warranty period, and that was it. Things like the locks that were recalled are things that were no cost to us because those were covered. But many of these items are not under warranty. Something like our security system cameras are under warranty for 3 years. So it really depends on the element that we're dealing with in the building. But there is a substantial amount of sort of fluctuation between 1 year, 3 years. Our roof is 10 years, so that's something that is more long-term.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so pages 14 and 15 are our budget for fiscal year 21. I can certainly go through this line by line, if that works.
do we really need to do it that way?
I don't think we need you to do that.
Okay.
I mean, certainly.
Would you like to highlight some things that you think you'd
Yeah,
like
when
to
you're
talk about?
finished,
Sure, I can highlight some things, absolutely. So our utilities are always something that we're trying to cut back on. We recently purchased our propane tank, so we'll be able to go out to bid for heat, which has been great. We did not own our propane tank. It was actually something that we were locked into our service provider's price for. So we anticipate there being some sort of savings there, but it really all depends on the weather. And I hate to
Who
say
is the vendor?
it was Phil's Propane.
Okay, and it'll be open now to bid, you're saying, or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Not much has changed over the past couple of years. We are sort of at a good point here as far as anticipating costs, like with our service contracts, because we have very good relationships with all of our vendors for those. We would also, in this budget, we included funds to our library collection or materials budget, which is towards the end of our operating expenses. And also, you'll see salaries have increased, and that's due to opening on Sundays, which of course, FICA is then increased a little bit as well due to that. As I mentioned before, our grant and aid will go down at this point. We're hoping that with some lobbying, there can be added funds to that pool that all the libraries receive funds from. So we'll see what happens there, but it's really not set in stone until the governor's budget has been enacted later in the year. We're requesting a 2.9% increase in town appropriation, which would be $602,000. And that's for opening on Sundays and also our collection budget. So those were some highlights. On page 15 is an explanation for each line. And that's all I have.
Yeah, so just so everybody knows, the water, North Tiverton Fire District has a rule that if you have a fire sprinkler system and it's unmetered, they're gonna levy a $349 fee on you to cover the water you might use. And their rationale is, well, you test it, you use water. Well, I've done it. I bet you Joe's done it. What do you use, 20 gallons of water to test?
Yeah.
You make sure an alarm goes off, you make sure a valve closes or opens. As soon as you see it, you close the test valve and you're done. But there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, fill up a couple of pumper trucks and then turn it off. Get our money's worth.
So is that pretty much, okay. Before I open the floor, I'm going to make a couple of comments, only so that it doesn't appear that I'm contradicting anybody else has something to say. I wrote out a speech. I was going to deliver it at the last Board of Trustees meeting. After I wrote it, I decided, well, I better read all the minutes. So I read all the minutes from June 2015 until the last one. Took notes, got a real education on things that happen at the library. Then I went and talked to Catherine for about, what, half an hour?
About that.
Then I went to the meeting. And they didn't recognize me until the very end of the meeting, so I didn't influence at all what was being said at that meeting. Every point that I had brought up in my speech was covered by Catherine. So she has a plan. She knows what the problems are. She has a master's degree in library science. Never prepared her for what's going on here. 90% of her problems are carryovers from the way the library was built, things that weren't dealt with way back then. She's inherited them. she takes one step forward and 3 steps back. There's not much we can do about it, we can just go after it. She's actively trying to get the town administrator and the building inspector to inspect the building so that she can see what needs to be done, develop a plan, prioritize, budget, whatever. It's kind of hard to do a good budget when you get blindsided with $27,000 worth of repairs that you did not anticipate. The biggest one now is the propane tank thing. Rick Rogers, I talked to him, he very much wants to do everything he can to help the library, but he's limited by manpower, time, and expertise. So a lot of this stuff probably have to be farmed out. It will cost more, but it's better to at least be doing something instead of nothing. So, you know, myself and Joe were complaining a lot about the exterior of the building, how we keep on seeing the same things. It's true, but a lot of those things had to go by the wayside to take care of the more pressing things that erupted on it. So, that's my spiel on the library. So, we'll start with Jen and...
Well, and then meanwhile, I would just repeat that the number of, while all of that was going on and you were having to run interference on building issues, you, the amount of attendance and the number of programs and the number of items in circulation, this has been a banner year. And the library is used by our town. It's just a remarkable success. I am concerned about how these things get funded from the library's budget because it's so slim. And I don't have a proposal for that at this moment, but I think that's an issue. And you mentioned that the foundation is trying to grow money, but that takes time. So anyway, thank you for all you're doing and your great success.
Thank you.
Brendan?
Great, thank you. Really comprehensive. You mentioned in terms of the grant and aid from the state, is they take the last 2 prior years, they average those, right? Their goal, or maybe even by statute, is they will do 25% of that average?
Yes, that's the goal.
But, right, that's the goal, right?
It's also statute.
It's a
It is.
statute, right? But you said where it's been the last couple of years has been 22%. So in essence, that's what they're applying that to all the libraries in the state. They figure out what fund that they have and they say this equates to this amount. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So looking at the budget in terms of what we're expecting in the grant and aid going down is because that 22% was 23 last year or whatever. Is that correct?
Yes, and also towards the end of the whole debate about the governor's budget, there was funds added to what the libraries receive. I don't know the exact number, but I believe it was about $200,000. So if you think about how libraries' budgets are going up as deemed by the towns, the municipalities here in the state, then if the libraries are all still pulling from the same amount of money, then they will end up getting less or a lower percentage because the fund is still the same, but the library's average budgets have been going up. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. The other thing was on page 8, the financial information, the current balance that you have is just over 50 grand.
Yes.
That's after the 27,000 that was detailed, correct? So in other words, you had to run your full year, you had a number of unexpected costs, and that fund balance is at 51.
Yes, so far our town allocation has covered our building repairs.
Okay. So has that fund balance, and this is the same issue we have with the school and stuff, is trying to understand where, what resources are available. Is the fund balance something that has hovered around $50,000? Has that kind of gone up and down? Do you know?
It's been about
It's been about that
50,000,
for a while.
yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
I know at least as long as I've been here, it's hovered around that area.
Catherine, could you, let me interrupt for a second. You explained to me how that fund balance was accumulated.
Yes.
Might be helpful if you told everybody what that was,
Sure.
how that.
So our fines, fees, and donations go into this line. That's the majority of what is in the checking account. So for our items that are overdue, those overdue fees, if someone loses a book, then when they pay for it, that goes into this account as well. And we do try and repurchase that book, if it's something that's still relevant and needs to go back in the collection. Also, if we have printing costs, so when somebody pays their 15 cents for a black and white page of printing, then that will also add up into this line as well. And even our donations that come into the library directly will go into this account. One other thing is our fees. So if we have somebody from out of state who would like to use our library, then they pay either $25 per year for the local use card, which is just for Tiverton, or they can pay $125 per year for the full access whole Ocean State Library system.
And there's about 700 of them, 600?
About, but that number can seem a little bit deceiving just because it may be someone who, for example, this summer I met a family who was here visiting grandparents just for about 2 weeks. They came into the library, they wanted to use the library while they were here with their own card, so not with the grandparents' card. So they paid $25 to use Tiverton Library for 2 weeks. It was good for the whole entire year, but whether they'll be back this summer, not something we know. So it's not necessarily, it's more at one time those folks had paid that fee.
So then it's safe to say that this fund balance does not come from leftover money in a line item. It's more money that was generated by library services.
Yes, we're required to spend
Which
our
you
town
keep.
allocation every year.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I have a question about Sundays.
Yes.
So would your schedule change seasonally? Like I know Middletown's library changes seasonally because like from Memorial Day to Labor Day, it's people are outside doing other things where in the winter they're, more apt to go to the library like on a Sunday. Would that fluctuate if you were able to implement that?
Yes, so we're actually budgeted for 35 Sundays between September and May. So that accounts for just towards the end of September through Memorial Day weekend. And then we would be closed on Sundays from May to September after the summer.
Perfect.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Catherine, how much of is the heating all done by propane?
Yes, it
The
is.
building?
Mhm.
And that's been a little bit of an issue. I read where the frozen, the well and everything.
Yes.
So it's cost you some money to fix.
So at first, when the issue first occurred, Phil's had come over, and that was, a service call that is already built into our fee that we pay per gallon. And because they do own the tank, they're required to come over for service. But we also had to call GM Refrigeration, who is our HVAC vendor. And so they also had to come, service calls. You can see it's been over $2,000 to date. So Phil's had sort of retrofit the tank to raise the regulator that was frozen so that it was out of the water
Right.
in that area, and that way the heat was able to go back on. So we were without heat for a couple of hours that day. But there needs to be a way for drainage to happen in that area. And it's sort of extensive what the thought behind the final plan goes into with a drainage pipe going out to a catch basin.
And that's going to be done, you'll put that out to bid, or is that something the Board of Trustees decides that, how does that work?
So DPW is able to sort of dig that trench, which will run a pipe from the propane fill well to the catch basin across our parking lot. And so as far as I know, that is still a consideration of DPW once the weather breaks. The thing is why we held off is because we would have to cold patch the asphalt, and that's not something we wanted to do with how active that drive-through area is. It would be very messy and not very great for our patrons to be driving over that.
So there's some people in the room that know some contacts within the propane world, so I will talk to you privately about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've said more than enough, Deb.
So how many classes in grad school did you learn about propane tanks?
I can tell you for a fact, absolutely none. And not even in my Master's of Public Administration programs either. They don't cover that.
Yeah, but you have good research skills.
Yes, yes.
You do. So
you.
this fund balance that we have right now, that does not include the purchase of the tank. The purchase of the tank will come out of this remaining.
No, we actually took the purchase
You've
of the
already
tank
done
out. Mhm. Yeah, this is actually our Bank Newport balance as of today.
And there's a lot of fluctuation in the prices of gas.
Absolutely.
Speaking from experience. So, given all of these, it's amazing the programs that you've been able to put together, adding to the kids' reading time, all of the adult programs. I think I had talked to you, I had done the computer course that's free of charge, the tax preparation that's free of charge. There's all of these different programs for little tiny tykes up into the elderly. My daughter uses the library. She is able to work from home. She uses the library 3 to 4 times a week as her office. She was a little put out a couple of weeks ago. Someone was in her seat. It was very crowded. She had to sit on the other side of the library to kind of get a different perspective. But she marvels at the people who are in there day to day. And she's there usually morning to like mid-afternoon at sometime in those hours. And she said it's just such a phenomenal place for her to be able to get her work done. So I thank you for everything that you do, and I just hope we can continue to grow, and that the rest of the public can really realize what a value we have.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and before you even got here, just so you know, the town was promised wonderful things with the library. It turns out the building has been a problem. It's a problem. And the way it was built, now the town is going to have to pay, probably, parts of that, that we didn't plan on. So it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. Now, you've been here 17 months. Did you think when things started to go wrong and you couldn't find the warranty, there was no warranty, did you contact anyone? Did you contact the DPW, the town administrator? How soon did you?
So with the shelving collapse that we had, we were originally told, sorry, we're not going to fix it. That's from B&B Brothers, because it was a 1-year warranty and that we were going to have to pay for all of those shelves to be rehung. So upon that happening, it was sort of interesting to see just how extensive the subcontractor list was. And so even just for our roof, having to go and backtrack to just find that warranty was something that took up a lot of my time. So, having those types of issues is something that we're really looking to mitigate as soon as possible. And I did speak with the Board of Trustees almost every month about the issues that were happening and the routes that we wanted to go to make sure that those issues were something that we were finding the person who originally did it and then going and seeing if there was any sort of extended warranty or what was going on that we could do that with.
Yeah, the board should have had all the warranties in a list for you. I mean, they should have had it in writing, That's definitely true. Yeah, if you had see here that you had significant amount of work was done to find who held the warranty. You couldn't even find it, because it wasn't there. It wasn't your fault, but it's just, to me, I see a lot of large costs. I locked out of the HVAC software system, then you have to pay, it wasn't upgraded, $2,378.
Yes, that's
I mean,
correct.
isn't that part of the standard upgrades that you'll do that you knew about, that someone told you from the library board, that has to be done? I mean, it should be in a plan that.
So it wasn't Catherine who failed?
I didn't say that.
To do the upgrades in a timely fashion?
Yeah.
It was a previous director.
Okay, how long was that director there?
I joined the board in August of 2018, so I don't know.
Okay.
She was hired well before my tenure began.
Yeah, I totally understand what she's dealing with. Yeah, I do.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Tell us how Jan got involved with this.
Can I just make one note, too, before we go any further? The builder, after the building was done, we had asked them for all of the backup paperwork for everything, warranties and everything else that went together. What we got was a flash drive, and all it was copies of invoices. There was no rhyme or reason, nothing was organized. It was just a whole bunch of copies. And I can't remember how many pages. It was over 1,000 pages. It was probably a lot more than that. And I can remember shortly after the library was built, looking for something and having to try to find something in there. And there was absolutely no way to find it.
Right, and
So we were kind of left with a mess. Is this on?
I can hear
can't
you.
tell if it's on. So we were kind of left with a mess after the construction was all done and everybody moved into the library. So
Right.
there was a lot more to it.
I totally understand. What I'm getting at is the town was promised a really good thing. The thing that somebody who's building a big building like that should be doing is making sure to get the warranties on this stuff that you don't have warranties on. I mean, it wasn't built well. I'm sure Joe's going to go into the wood corners and this and that. I mean, it's some issues here. Do you know how much of the money that you get back is federal? Do you know what the percentage is, Catherine? You talked about the money that you get back that's funded from state, and then somebody said some was federal. Do you know
Yes.
how much is that federal?
I will check on that.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yep.
On the vacation, is there any way that your part-timers could cover the vacation instead of hiring, you have other on-call people for that? Why is that the existing employees can't cover for each other
So
at times?
because-
Like most companies do, you know?
Yes, so we do have a certain level of that, absolutely, where they do cover for vacation or sick time. But when we do have that absence of, somebody who is a library assistant is going to be fulfilling more time on a desk than somebody who is one of our programming librarian staff. So if somebody who's a library assistant out, that's where we see that gap in where the service desk coverage is and when we need to call in our on-call assistants.
Do you make an effort to sort of train some people on different things so they can
Oh,
cover?
absolutely,
Okay.
everybody is cross-trained.
Oh, okay, that's, okay. I mean, and the last thing would be that you do have just the 5 FTE requirement, right? You
The
do
minimum.
Minimum, yeah, and you're doing 8. So just, that, you're spending the money the way you want, right? You don't have to spend on the 3 extra FTEs. That could be spent on building repairs and other things if you wanted it to. That's your decision, the board and you, that's making that decision, correct?
That would also mean there would be no library programs.
At all?
Yes.
You can't do library programs with 5 people full
No, we
time?
cannot.
Okay, and again, thank you for what you are doing, and I know it's a difficult situation. Somehow the building was built in a way that caused a lot of problems for taxpayers. So, thank you, though, for what you're doing.
You're welcome.
Only that, I heard that the building inspector and the public works director are going to go and look at the building, but my opinion is we should is hire somebody who's a painting contractor, go over there and do a professional assessment and give us an estimate then you can use that to prepare your bid. The building inspector, I'm sure has, been in the trades, but I don't think he even owns a ladder. Needs somebody who can get over there. I mean, I'm looking up and I'm seeing cracks in the clock face where the boards, the panels are starting to set. If you go up and look, I went with my spyglass, I looked at the whole building. You need somebody over there who can get up and look at the entire building and probably inspect the roof too, to see if there's any other damage. I don't remember what was the entire bond on this building? What was the total cost on it? Was it?
Carol?
It was about 11 million, and the town paid 4 out of the 11.
Yeah, $11 million, and I'm just thinking a 1-year warranty on a million. I don't know how we ended up with that. I mean, I would think they would have to put up a bond, a performance bond, to ensure that, the work was done, properly.
Right.
But, past is the past. We're stuck with this lemon, and we got to get it repaired, but it's just my personal opinion that the town should spend some money, hire somebody who's in the profession of doing estimates, go over there and spend a day and give us a detailed estimate of that building and what it needs on the exterior. And when you talk about priorities, I mean, yeah, shelves fall over. But when you have water leaking into your walls, which it is, I mean, I went up to the front where the teen library is, in that corner, and I can stick my finger in the hole. I can look in the wall. And the water's going in there today with all the rain. Inside of the walls. That's a priority. When the outside of a building is leaking, that's the priority, not more librarians. So, in my opinion, the money has to be directed towards getting that building. Forget about expanding services. Get the building where it's going to last at least till the bonds are paid for. That's my opinion.
Well, a lot of what you just said, I had presented. One thing I was trying to get Catherine to tell us was she ultimately got the town administrator involved, and he was horrified about the shelf issue, and he took some steps to move that thing along and try to get this taken care of. And like Judge said, a lot of these issues have been around 4 or 5 years. And, we've got somebody here now who has got a laser focus on a lot of this stuff. It's true we need a good survey of the building. It's true that we need to have a good plan. And I think they're trying to work on it. But it's going to take some time. These are inherited problems. Yes, Sally?
That was nasty.
Yes, you may.
Well, Sally's walking up. Did you say, Joe, a painter estimate or a paid estimate?
No, paid, I said like a paint contractor, somebody who contracts with exterior painting and like that, and a roof contractor, to look at the roof and give us a professional assessment. See.
And get up there.
Somebody who paints would do that?
I'm talking about somebody who does
Exterior.
professional exterior painting, who's familiar with, architecture and, that.
Well, it doesn't just have to be a painter. It could be a building professional that could look at the whole thing and give us a good.
I'm saying somebody who's, up on modern, techniques.
Well, Sally's up
Sorry,
here. She has
Sally.
something to tell us.
That's okay, I'm a teacher, I'm very patient. So, this is one of my missions, because in the Rhode Island Constitution, public education and public libraries are on the same line. So we've always been partners in this. So as we went door to door, and we heard, we don't need a library, everyone has computers, and no one's going to use it. And Mrs. Herman and I used to fight with the chair of our school committee, who would say, the parking lot's going to be empty, Black. What's the matter with you? You're wasting your time. And every time I can't find a parking place, I'm so excited. When I was on the waiting list for my granddaughter, I said, this is fabulous, okay? When I went this summer to the concert and stood with Elvis, there's my picture. That was one of the big nights of my life, singing all the songs with him, let me tell you, for free. Fabulous. Just bring your lunch and sit on the lawn. It's amazing. And the reason I'm up here tonight is because today someone came up to me, and they were from the AARP. And they said, I just want you to share this, that it's been so amazing to have the library to have the confidential tax returns, because where they used to be, there was no confidentiality, and no one wants to hear that. And she said, "You have been wonderful accommodating the elderly so they don't have to wait outside in the cold. They're safe, warm, and dry while they're waiting." And so she said, "If you have a chance, please thank them." So that's what I'm up here to do. I just talked to her today. So thank you very much for everything you've done.
Sally, I have a question.
Thank you for sharing.
I have a question for you, yeah. Last year we went on a tour of the library, and they told us that they were going to try to interact with the schools, possibly bringing younger students over to the library and interacting. I don't think that's happened.
Oh, yeah,
but
we
I-
work with the schools all the time.
What is going on with that?
There's
Can you tell?
programs
Is it-
all the time with the schools.
They-
And you
they-
can't even get a spot there. That's what's so amazing.
So you
There's so
bring
many
them,
different
you bus
things
them
going
over,
on.
right? The
Yeah,
kids?
if
Okay.
they need to come, they certainly would.
Okay,
Yeah, definitely. We work together all the time.
And just to add to that, one of the highlights of our year was having some Fort Barton students come over for a field trip, and they were able to get a VIP tour back into our staff area, which I didn't realize how exciting it was until we saw the excitement on their faces.
So, just to kind of add, I'm a parent of an elementary student and a middle school student. But the way that you engage them to read over the summer, the programs that you offer them, my son gets excited every week to go in and get his card checked off that he did his reading. I think it's a fabulous area to bring them to. I'm so glad that Tuesdays are back. As a person that has Tuesdays off, I was very disappointed not to be able to go there. But sometimes they just go just to sit and read and people watch and kind of utilize some downtime. And the other thing is I don't regularly bring my items back on time, so I was glad to see where that was going as well. Thank you.
Catherine, I'd just like to say that we're lucky to have you. Thank you for your leadership, professionalism. I know you have a good board behind you. And Mr. Souza is right. We need to fix that building. You inherited that problem that was spoken, but I hope that the town will be behind you to make that happen. So thanks for sticking with us and fixing everything.
Just say one thing, if you don't mind. I just want to say that Catherine, since she started at the library, has worked very hard to build relationships with other people at Town Hall and to work together with them, and that is a main priority now, especially with the building, for everybody to get together to work on a plan together, and that's why in a few weeks, hopefully, we're going to have a meeting with the building committee of the library, the town administrator, DPW, building inspector, to all go over some of the issues that have come up and to figure out how we're going to take care of all of the issues that there are at the building. It is a top priority for all of us. And we did inherit a lot of this, and yes, I know there's a lot of issues with the builder. There's nothing we can do about that now. And the last thing that we really want to do is spend $28,000 on repairing a building, a brand-new building, but it has to be done, and there's more to come. So, but she's working on it. She has built those relationships, and it's been very helpful.
One last item. My source is a terrible one. I was reading on Facebook. And I don't know if you can verify this, but it said, this was 2 days ago, that last year more children went to a library than went to a movie theater.
Yes, that's actually for the general population, so just beyond children as well. It was a recent Gallup poll, and public library visits ranked as the top sort of extracurricular activity for all individuals in the United States.
So people are getting their books and their movies at the library now.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes.
Anybody else? Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
So Jake, one of the things that for us as a committee, on the spreadsheets that we're using here, the numbers for the library was 597. The request that presenting to us today is like 604. So as we
offering to
update
help
these things,
to
right?
inspect the building.
Yeah.
Went before the town council, they told us to sell the property. Yeah. Told we'd be arrested if we went on the property, so we
All
don't.
right, so now we're down to where we belong, item number 8. A, B, C, D, Trish Hilton, the chairman of the town council, has offered to help us out with some of this. I think I mentioned John is out. We don't know for how long.
That's great.
Oh, sorry, you're waiting for me.
The ball is in your court.
I'm sorry, what, can you tell me?
Oh, okay, so the town administrator's budget is on page 5, item 1120.
So which one are we starting with, which budget are we starting with here?
January
No,
15th.
no, the town administrator's budget?
Town administrator budget.
And that's on page, oh, here we go. So, as you can see, Jan's budget has some places where it's flat. The big increase is in the website support stipend. Currently, our tax assessor, Dave Roberts, basically operates our website for us. We're trying to put more and more information on the website, make things more readily accessible. It takes time to do that. Jan is proposing an increase in the stipend that we pay Dave for that additional website work for the year. And you'll also notice the IT consulting services, which is something, and by the way, we've taken a first pass at this, but this is one of the things that we've earmarked to come back and look at. We have someone here who's been doing IT consulting for us, an independent contractor. We had a discussion as to whether or not we should be considering going out to bid for this. It's sort of grown slowly, organically over time. So that's something that we actually, the council agreed that we would come back to and discuss again at a later time during our budget deliberations.
So for now, it would remain at the 25, but toward the end of the budget season, that might change, or?
That might change.
Okay.
That might change.
Do you know what the actual is as of today? Because I'm just wondering, the actual for 18-19 was 15,000, and then last year we approved 25. I'm just wondering how much of that we used.
I can look that up.
Denise can tell you, she's
Thanks,
got
give me a
the,
moment.
she's got the year-to-date spending on that.
Thank you.
But you can see that it's been sort of growing, going back to 2018 and even then 2017. You know, frankly, as the technology gets, I won't say necessarily more complicated, but as we move towards cloud computing and the networking and trying to connect people, it becomes more work. For somebody to do all these upgrades, for somebody to install the network, for somebody to you know, help manage it when things go wrong. But that may well be time that, you know, we've reached a point that we really should be going out to bid for those services. Not that the fellow who is doing it is not doing a wonderful job, but.
So line item 7590, Jen, is that what you're asking, the computer
Yes.
services?
Yeah, the year-to-date on that.
We actually have $20,000 remaining in there.
Thanks, Denise.
That's as of December 31st.
So I have a question, Trish.
Yeah.
Why did the department head salary not budge?
Because John didn't put in a,
It was his idea.
this is Jan's budget. Jan did not put in a salary increase. Jan's current salary, though, is 90,
Yeah, it's current
is 92,377.
Yeah. So it did increase.
Last year.
last year.
it did, but nothing from last year to this year.
So he's leaving room for it because.
Right, in other words, there's room
2005.
there compared with the current salary.
Why is it zero? If he's at 92,377.
Why does it say 0 for the percent change?
Because it didn't change.
Because it didn't change from
It
last
didn't
year.
change from last year.
No, last year was 94,860,
They
correct?
just said it was
But
92,377.
we budgeted for this, but this is not what his
We
actual.
budgeted more than he's actually getting.
By about $630.
It's 2%.
Okay,
Yeah, it's 2%.
thank you.
I'm sorry, so it was budgeted last year, but he was not paid?
He didn't get the raise.
His salary last year remained the same as it was the year before.
The 92,377.
We have any other questions on, is that me?
It's you.
It's your chair.
WD-40.
So what was approved for last year, was it 92,377?
No, what was approved for last year was 94,860.
We put 2% into each budget increase because that's the average of what we usually give. But that doesn't necessarily mean we will give it, but it's there.
Well, if we cut out the League of Cities and Towns, we can give pay raises to the harbor master. How
Well,
about that?
that ended up going back in this year, but prorated,
It
right?
did. The League of Cities and Towns allowed us to rejoin. At the end of December, our electricity purchasing contract was about to expire. And the league has a very good, very competitive energy purchasing program that their members can take advantage of. So the decision was made to go back to the league, specifically to be able to take advantage of the energy, otherwise our energy costs would have spiked after January. We needed to be in a purchasing consortium, and they were gracious enough that since we were only joining for half the year, to give us a prorated membership fee for the year. But we would like to continue and be a member for, next year. Last year, we were the only community that wasn't a member. Out of 39, we were the only one that was not a member.
But Johnston wasn't a member. Alcina.
They're a member. According to the league, they're a member.
That's strange.
So I know every year we have an issue with the League of Cities and Towns, and every year I support it, and I'll tell you why again. Things like this.
Yeah, Prism.
Yeah.
They brought us Prism. Look at our light bill now.
The League of Cities
It was
and
supposed to
Towns-
save us money.
The League of Cities and Towns has people whose sole purpose is to keep an eye on the state legislator, keep an eye on things like electric costs, all these things. And they do statistics, they crunch numbers, and they do it impartially. They don't do it for Providence, they don't do it for Tiverton, they do it for Rhode Island. And then when they have an issue, or if they see something coming down the pike that looks like an oncoming train for any or all of these communities, they ring the bell, they let you know. They also send representatives to the State House. They organize almost a torchlight vigil to go there and accost our legislators and let them know, you're doing bonehead things. We don't like it. And if they didn't do that, then each town administrator or mayor would have to call around, organize all this stuff, get people to come. Well, that's not their job. They're supposed to be managing and governing towns. So we have this external group that does it for them and takes a lot of that load off. And for that reason, if for no other, I think we should be a member. And to say that, well, whether we are or not, they'll still do things for us is not true. You've got to be a member, and it's more than just being a good old boy network like the Elks.
So I will say this about the league. In addition to the energy purchasing program, which is very, very significant, they really are our lobbying voice. They are the municipal lobbying voice in the State House. They know who all the players are. They know where the votes are. They know who needs to be spoken with. They know how to do all that. If you don't know how to do that, if you've ever been up there, it's really difficult. And generally, you know, their stake in the ground are on things that are going to have a negative fiscal impact on municipal budgets. Those are the things that they really are at the top of their legislative list. So that when there are things out there that may benefit a specific industry or a specific special interest group or something like that at the expense of a municipal budget, it's the league that organizes everybody and really sort of helps us make our case. In addition to that, they have some really great educational and training programs that are mostly, occasionally there's a small $15 sign-up fee. I think it's probably to cover the lunch. But they have some really great training programs and seminars and symposiums. For example, the latest thing with solar energy, right, are these gargantuan storage batteries, which nobody knows what to do with. But the league put together a whole day event for municipalities on what these things are, they're the place that looks at these things and does some really wonderful training. They've got management skills training. They've got all kinds of municipal training that's available, plus these sort of really good initiatives to help us get up to speed on some of this stuff that's coming down the pike, like, solar storage batteries that, frankly, we don't have a clue what to do with. So they're very, very helpful for us. And by the way, it's not just on the municipal side. They're also big advocates too for fair school funding, for not having unfunded educational mandates pushed on communities. I mean, so it's not just the municipal side, but they also worry about about the state being fair in terms of education funding too.
Excuse me, do you have an example of when they stopped in a mandate from the state for the towns?
Yeah,
An educational one?
Actually, I was involved in one. I was on the Conservation Commission. There was
An educational one. Educational.
An educational one.
You can go ahead with go ahead with yours. I was asking.
Well, this is just a personal experience I had. So there was a pending zoning bill that would have stripped a tremendous amount of authority from towns over their own zoning. The bill was being pushed by the Rhode Island Building Trades Association, and it would have opened up, thousands of acres for development. And the municipalities were against it. They organized us. Not only did the league brought in itself 5 or 6 planners and land use attorneys, but they also helped coordinate the municipalities. They brought us all up to the State House. They helped us prepare to testify. They set us up to testify. They made sure that when we were there, we were speaking to the right legislators and telling our town story. That bill died in committee. And if it weren't for their organization, that bill was on a fast track to pass. There was no question about it. So they know how to do this stuff, and they know how to rally the right people when they need to act on behalf of a municipality. I haven't had as much direct experience with them on the educational side. I just do know that they're often, involved in fair funding formulas and the State Department of Education when it comes to mandates that are unfunded and how they affect municipalities. It's one of the things that they take up too.
Well, then please make sure they're involved this year in this funding formula situation, please.
They actually are.
Okay, thank you very much.
So where are we at?
We're done then with the
the
town
town
administrator.
council's budget, which is on page 4, 1020.
So on the town council budget, the stipend amount of 17,675, that should be decreased back to 17,500. The town council declined any increase in the stipends. The contingency fund, and I think some of you know this who've been following this. We have two contracts that have recently been negotiated. One is ratified, signed and ratified. That's the AFSCME contract for the town hall staff as well as the CCOs at the police department. The second is the Teamsters contract, which has not yet been ratified by the union, but hopefully we're very close. The contingency fund right now contains money that will settle those salary increases, assuming both of these are done. The AFSCME contract is signed. It is posted on the website. The fiscal impact is posted, although the town treasurer is doing a little bit of final tweaking on that. It's a little complicated because you have both at AFSCME people who might be changing steps, and so that will slightly affect their salary. The same thing with the CCOs at the police department. That's even a little bit more complicated, so she just wants to get, very final details on who exactly is where and when they're gonna be for July 1st. So that contingency fund number will go down, but those numbers will be transferred to salary line items to, all the departments that have either AFSCME staff or Teamster staff once we're done. We're hoping, I think the town treasurer feels that she'll have the AFSCME numbers for us fairly soon and they can be dispersed into the rest of the budget. The Teamsters contract, we're hoping it'll be signed soon and then we'll be able to do the same there.
Denise, can I ask you the same question about this account with the current spend for this year, based on what we allocated?
Putting me to work.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think there's
No, I
like
just looked at
60,
that. It was 60-something.
there's 60-something left in it, although a portion of that will be eaten up by the AFSCME contract that as of January 1st increases, which will take effect. So, a good portion of that will be spent down shortly.
Was the AFSCME contract go back to July 1st?
No, it's the increases start January 1, although the contract expired July 1st. The increases are effective January 1.
Sorry. Everybody all set with town council?
Who's doing the rewrite for the zoning? This is 15,000. Rewrite zoning code.
Under
On the
town-
bottom, page 4.
Under town council?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm under legal service. We haven't got to
sorry,
that
going
yet.
there.
You're-
We haven't got there yet. I mean, we're going down there.
Yep.
All set on town council? Let's do, are you comfortable with town hall operations
Yeah.
budget? Page 4, 1040.
Town hall operating expenses are up 1.9%. The heat's up a little bit, just kind of on, historical usage, although this has been a fairly mild winter, so we'll see, but, a lot of it depends on the kind of winter that you have. This has been mild. Last year was a little bit more normal. As you can see, we're a little bit over on the heat budget, so Jan's asking for an increase there. Electricity, electric costs continue to go up even with our contract. I have to say, we did replace all of these lights with LEDs, and we were hoping to see a bigger decrease. It's a little hard to tell.
Can I ask you something about that?
Mm-hmm.
It's Why did the library not get included in that effort?
I think at the time, it was not that there wasn't funding to do the whole townwide. So I think that we looked at the places where we had the oldest, most expensive lights. And, the old fluorescents that were here were the most expensive ones, that you could have. I'm trying to remember which other buildings we did. Did we do the fire department?
I'm not sure if we did.
So that all makes sense.
But we just picked the oldest, least energy efficient ones that were there, and those were the ones that we used those funds to upgrade. Water goes up, the telephone's the same. Building maintenance, again, it's an old building, and there is a repair list of things that need to be repaired in the building.
I believe, and I think Jan is actively involved in trying to consolidate telephone and get a better deal and get upgraded equipment and all that, but again, it's a thing that takes time.
Just a question on the building maintenance. We have town buildings on our capital expenses, so a total of $1,155,000.
So, Ruth, just so you know, we haven't, the town council has not been through any of the capital yet at all. So
That's why I didn't include it.
I can't we have not yet got to, the capital. I mean, most of the maintenance, this sort of maintenance is not big capital stuff. It's, repairing for the rotted window frames. It's, painting the trim that's peeling. It's, it's repairing, the kinds of things that sort of go from wear and tear in this building, given how old it is.
Jan decides that, pretty much. He looks at it, or DPW.
Usually something falls off.
Jan, in combination with the DPW director and our two great maintenance guys who take care of this building. They're pretty diligent about noticing that there's a problem somewhere, because they're here all the time.
Okay,
So
thanks, that's good, thanks.
If they see something rotting, breaking, falling, they're pretty on top of it.
Thank you.
The older part of the building over there is pretty bad. A lot of that.
Deal with it.
You good on this part, Jay?
Yeah, are we all set with that?
Anyone have any questions?
All right, can we move on to the legal services budget, page 4, 1050?
Yep. As you can see, the prosecution's budget is down. That's based on historical numbers. Apparently, we've got less prosecutions, which I guess is a good thing. I should note to you that the Labor Council, the Town Council took a preliminary vote to reduce that from $60,000 to $35,000. We have just one contract that will be up for renewal next year. Those contract negotiations will open up in January of next year. So where we've had in the past couple of years 2 contracts going at a time, we had both police and fire at the same time. This year we had Teamsters and AFSCME at the same time. We'll only have one, and it won't open up till January. Our Labor Council does also advise us on labor matters, personnel issues, things like that. But at a preliminary vote, we think that we won't need as much as we've needed the last 2 years.
And just as a point of information, the town administrator thought that reduction was a little excessive, but the town council doesn't, and they have good reasons for thinking that. Where are we at?
That drops that line item
Yeah,
down,
still wanted to know that.
the total considerably.
Who was doing the review rewrite for the zoning code?
Which page are we on, Joe?
Same legal services.
Same thing on legal
Very
service,
bottom.
right at the
The
very
bottom
bottom.
of legal services.
15,000.
7195.
Yeah, so, So that is a little bit to be determined. We have a new town solicitor who is doing our land use. We may or may not ask him to take it on, or we may decide to go out and sub it out to an attorney who does a lot of land use work. I think it kind of depends on when it's ready to go and whatever else is going on. Certainly our new solicitor could do it, but it's an extra separate outside project. So I think it'll depend on when it's ready and the timing of it. There's a considerable amount of work that needs to get done on the zoning code. A lot of it is sort of backed up because we need a professional planner to help us do this so we don't create the law of unintended consequences, which can easily happen in the absence of a professional. But we're cautiously optimistic that we'll have somebody and we can start and clean this code up.
Has the comp plan completely been accepted by the town?
And by the state, yes.
So the town and the state?
Yes.
So now we can do the rewrite?
We can do the rewrite. We just really need the right, staff professionals to be able to help us to do it. We need a planner.
Then why is it in legal services? I don't understand. Because you did say before that the new planner was somebody you wanted to hire who would be able to do this.
They would, but you have to have zoning code reviewed by an attorney because you're essentially creating a legal document. I mean, those are, while they're not laws in the same sense as the state laws, those are in fact laws. So you have to have somebody who can read those and recognize whether or not they will stand up in court.
Okay, so this is just his legal part, and whoever is hired, whoever would be the planner. Okay.
Essentially, this is really a review, and they make comments and suggestions on wording.
Okay.
The court interprets things like where there's a comma in a clause can make a difference as to what it means. That's what, that's what this person, the legal review does.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions on legal? Okay, so it appears that we're done with that, all this stuff, huh? Have I missed anything?
No, we'll have to move capital requests to another date.
Right, so that would be E,
E.
is the
E.
town hall.
Well, we do have Rick from the DPW here. He might have some insight on this.
The council hasn't looked at it.
Oh, well, yeah, but he can,
I might suggest, it's your committee, you can do what you want, but if you looked at the capital request, you'll see it's all fairly significant. We are going to have to really go through that, so whatever you want to do is fine, but I would expect that the final capital that you get from us as a recommendation is going to be significantly different than what's on that list.
okay, so then maybe we should defer it.
Carl, before we move off of that.
Yep.
Because on the recycle center, I was hoping I could just make a quick comment on that while the council's here.
Can we do that? I don't think we can because it's not on the agenda.
Well, we're not voting on it,
No, we're not.
but it's under capital. That's why I didn't want to move, that's why I was hoping we could just go into capital for a moment. It's nothing serious, just an observation from watching the engineer.
All we have is capital requests for town hall repairs. Is what's on our agenda.
Oh, I thought we were going capital.
No, we're not doing capital. I cherry-pick things out of capital to match who was here.
Well, then I will motion to put it on the agenda for discussion. If I can get a second.
I'm not an expert on the rules.
You can discuss anything, you can't vote on it.
I'll second it. It's just a question. It's a short question.
It's not, it's just a quick comment and observation.
If there's a motion and a second,
Then we can do
the
it.
majority says
So
yes.
Joe has made a motion that we have a discussion on
Just a
the-
quick discussion on the transfer, the recycling center.
Okay. We have
And
a
it-
second? All those in favor? How many I got? 1, 2,
Just-
3, 4, 5. Okay, the motion carried, I believe.
I think she's got it.
Two no's.
She has it.
Well, I watched the presentation online, and I noticed that when I was looking at the plan, that the engineer, I know we've actually looked at a different site, but he was talking about blasting and putting the recycle collection down where you would walk up with your bin and dump into an open dumpster. And I said to myself, if you go to the recycle centers now, the bins that you dump into are on grade, and there's doors on the side of the dumpster, and there's a top on the dumpster. And it's like that to keep the load dry, because we had so that was something I noticed right off the bat, that the engineer had that in the plan. Second thing was the yard waste. We currently grind the yard waste, I think it's like $80,000 for the tub grinder. And then we mix that and we use it for landfill cover. So I didn't understand why we were gonna have yard waste. How would we get rid of it?
Would you like me to answer?
Please, we're not voting on it, so it's
okay.
not a problem to have a
So-
discussion.
If
So-
you have some insight into this.
So, at the end of the day, the option with the depressed, that was not chosen. So, we're not going to do that.
All right.
Although there are.
That's a different area, Joe, and we're not gonna put it.
I know, but
That was
I was
the
talking about
expensive area,
specifically to.
right?
That was
yeah.
the more expensive area. However, there are some recycling centers that are built, and they have to deal with drainage and all that, where it's instead of, the doors are over, they actually are lower, and they have like a guardrail, and, you toss the stuff over. But we're not doing that, so that was just an option, we didn't do it. As far as the yard waste goes, at some point, we won't be able to continue to use yard waste for landfill cover. We are actively continuing to seek out other options for what to do with yard waste. We know we need a plan for it, but it may be in the long run that the yard waste doesn't stay here. It may be possible that we can, that there may be an entity that's interested in our yard waste beyond what DPW would use in their normal course. For now, we have to plan for a place, but we're hoping that we can come up with a better long-term solution than just us collecting the yard waste and then grinding it and having an absolutely massive pile of yard waste. So, we're not quite there yet, but there are 3 or 4 interesting options that we are pursuing for that. But it's a good point. We can't have an unlimited supply of it, because eventually the yard waste pile would fill up the whole landfill. Fill up the whole industrial park. That's not gonna work, so.
No.
It won't decompose and like.
Not that much. And people can use it for mulch and you can get it for free, but, it's,
Thing was, like I say though, you have to grind it, and that tub grinder costs a lot of money.
right. However, if
We
we,
can maybe do an RFP, find somebody that wants it.
Eventually.
My only point was we shouldn't probably wait on it. I was just thinking maybe we should be looking now
We
to
are.
find somebody.
We are-
Get
we are-
the RFP out there and see if anybody,
we are actively pursuing additional options for what to do with the yard waste. And there have been a couple of, from what I understand, a couple of blips of interest, but they're businesses, so they would prefer not that, we share their idea with the world yet.
Yeah.
But we're looking for solutions for that, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you. It's like
All right, so,
1,000 cubic yards.
I'm sorry you had to come, Rick.
Hope everyone has a good evening.
I don't think we need you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks,
He
Rick.
doesn't mind.
All right, so, the next thing on the agenda was the approval of the minutes from January 23rd. However, I had forgotten that we already did that.
Nice.
We have the approval of the minutes from February 1st, which was a site visit. Everybody should have a copy of that.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
You mean I didn't make any mistakes on it?
Nope.
Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor?
You gonna do it? You weren't there.
We didn't vote.
Abstain, we
No,
weren't
abstain.
there. We're abstaining.
Wait a minute, that was the library?
February,
No, that was the, yeah, that was.
Yeah.
That was the library.
I was here.
So whoever wasn't there,
Abstain.
library and senior center.
Check.
Okay,
Next.
the next one is approval of the draft minutes of February 8th, which was the school.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Abstain.
How about a
Oh, wait a minute,
roll?
I'm abstaining.
you weren't there.
You weren't there.
Two abstentions here.
Sorry, that was cleaning out.
Wow. Okay. Okay, so now, due to my ineptitude, if you will,
Don't say that.
I failed to meet the deadline for posting the minutes for this coming Saturday. However, it let me do it for Sunday, and all of you who responded to my email about that, thank you very much. I did get the police chief and the DPW director to accommodate us. They were very good. You can beat me up outside after. No.
No, we already did that, correct?
Combined on Thursday, the 20th. We are, at our meeting, we'll have DPW and the police.
What do you expect, what do you expect me to do?
On Sunday, the 15th.
Sunday, the 15th.
Oh, yeah, well, no, that's the site visit.
Yes.
Sunday
So on
the
the
15th.
20th.
And then on the 20th, at our regular meeting, we have the police and DPW.
Excellent. So those would be papers.
She's Filipino girl, I buy her
Juicy ones.
fish.
So, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.